Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started shortly. Thank you for joining us. This is a HTA TAP driver educational event. We're excited to have folks come learn about some of the ways we can help protect you and your family down the road. We'll get started shortly. This is going to be interactive, so if you have any questions for us at any time, you can go ahead and enter them into the chat room.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our very first Facebook Live event. Today's presenters are financial advisors Jason Weaver and Andrew Barrier from Weaver Consulting Group. Welcome. Weaver Consulting Group is a family-led business with more than 20 years of experience, and they are located in Huntington Beach, and they are our newest addition to the Trucker Advantage program. This info session will be focused on retirement planning and investment. Please feel free to ask any questions or provide comments during this live stream. We will have a Q&A portion after the presentation to address them. Welcome, Andrew, Jason, once again. Andrew, take it away.
Mike, Andrew.
So I want to say thank you guys all for joining us. I know you guys are very busy being on the road. So a little bit about us as a firm. We are focused on pre-retirees and retirees on investment planning, investment strategies, and retirement planning. Jason Weaver is a Forbes Top Wealth Advisor, both in the state of California and the country, and he's very glad to be here. So I want to pass it over to Jason. Jason, take it away, my friend.
Well, great. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. And what we're going to be talking about is ways for you to save for retirement and especially save money on taxation. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start with a little education around taxation. So if you look at our current federal tax system, it's a progressive tax system, which means that you pay a certain amount of income tax on the first $9,950. If you're single, that's 10%. If you're married, it's $19,900. So the first $19,900, if you're married, you're paying 10%, and then it goes up from there. So the bottom tax rate is 10%, and then it goes all the way up to 37%. And so if you're making over $329,850, and of course, your tax rate would be about 24%, right around that amount. So today we're going to be talking about strategies in order to reduce your federal income tax. And then also you have that nasty state income tax if you're in California. So, and that's also on a progressive tax system. So you start at 1% and you go all the way up to 12.3%. It does take a lot of income to get to 12.3%, but again, it's pretty easy to get to 8%. So what I found is most people fall within a marginal tax rate of about 22% federal and 8% state. So it's about 30% tax for most individuals making about $150,000 of income as a married couple. Now, as independent contractors, you also probably notice you have another tax as self-employment tax. And the way that works is that you pay your own Social Security. So typically if you're employed or a W-2, what happens is that your employer pays half of that tax, but being an independent contractor, you pay the full amount. So you pay 6.2% plus another 6.2%. So that's 12.4% goes to your Social Security tax, and you pay that up to $142,800. And then you pay a Medicare tax. Again, if you were W-2'd and employed, your employer would pick up half of that. But as an independent contractor, you pay the full 2.9%. So you're potentially, again, if you're at $142,800, you're paying another 15.3% actual self-employment tax. So today is again about how do we save money and what are some of our options when it comes to retirement planning in this ever-changing tax landscape that we're hearing about, where potentially with the debt levels we have in the United States, we're going to be raising taxes. So we find that a lot of independent contractors like to use IRA accounts. Those are just basically amounts you can put in an individual retirement account, and the amount is currently $6,000 if you're below 50, and if you're over 50, you get a catch-up contribution of $1,000. So you could put in $7,000, again, pre-tax. There's another plan that we find a lot of independent contractors using, which is called a SEP IRA, a Simplified Employee Pension Plan. And the beauty of this plan is now you can actually contribute up to 25% of your income. But being that you are self-employed and you do deduct 1/2 of your self-employment tax, the actual percentage is more like 20%. So hypothetically, if you had $100,000 of income, you could contribute $20,000 to a SEP IRA plan. And again, you're saving at the federal and state income tax level. And giving what I was saying that most people pay at about a 30% rate, you're saving again 30% on whatever amount you contribute. The plan that we want to share with you today, which is probably a little unique to most of you, you might not have heard of this, is a individual 401k plan or solo 401k plan. This works just like a lot of 401k plans that employers have, and you get the $19,500 contribution. If you're over the age of 50, you get a catch-up contribution of another $6,500. And there's another kicker, you get to match 20% of your self-employment income. So in a scenario where you're making $100,000, you could potentially contribute about $46,000 pre-tax if you're over the age of 50. So another great option for you. Now, as again, retirement planning, remember that these plans, because you are taking the deduction today, you do need to leave those monies in the account until you're 59 and a half. And they will grow tax deferred, which means you will not pay tax until you take them out, but you do pay tax when you are retired, and you do not want to take it out before 59 and a half because there is a penalty assessed to that actual investment. Now, as you're accumulating money, for retirement, you need to think about, where are you going to invest this money? And there's a rule, and the rule that we like to talk about is Rule 72. And basically what that means is that you take your rate of return and divide that into 72, and it tells you how long it takes for your money to double. So if you're making an 8% return, your money's going to double every 9 years. So the more you can put in when you're younger, of course, the more compound interest you're going to get, and the more you're going to have, of course, at the end, because you're giving it more time to double. So now when you're investing too, you have to think about the different tax ramifications for distributions and the tax efficiency of the investments you're making. And you might actually have heard about this Roth IRA. A Roth IRA is basically an investment where you do not take the deduction today. It's an after-tax contribution. It has the same actual contribution amounts as an IRA. So it's $6,000 if you're below 50 and $7,000 if you're over 50. Now, the beauty of the Roth IRA, again, is it grows tax deferred, but comes out tax-free if you wait 5 years and you're 59 and a half. So under this scenario we're talking about, let's say you're a pretty young driver, and you've got 20 to 30 years of accumulation, and you did not take the deduction, you put it into a Roth IRA. Let's say you invested in some stocks. That money grows tax deferred all the way to, of course, your retirement age. Let's say you waited the 5 years and now you're 59 and a half. You could pull all of that money out tax-free. So a pretty powerful investment. Now, if you're contributing to an IRA, you have to choose between the IRA or Roth IRA. So basically what happens is you can't go do an IRA of $6,000 and a Roth IRA of $6,000. But if you decide to do a SEP IRA, you can actually still do a Roth IRA, again, if you qualify. And if you choose to do an individual 401k, you can still do a Roth IRA, again, if you qualify. So there are certain actual qualifications that you have to meet. So first of all, if you are single, you have to make below $125,000 of taxable income. So adjusted gross income. And then if you're actually married, you have to make below $198,000. And you can contribute to a Roth IRA and also do this retirement account that we spoke about. So as we look at, this landscape, and we don't believe taxes are going down anytime soon, the question always is to us is, do I take the deduction today, or do I take the hit today and pay, actually no taxes in the future? And so that's really a question for each of you individually to address. My thought always is that if you're in the higher tax rates, that you're going to want some deduction today, but maybe you do a combination of a, let's say, SEP IRA or individual 401k plan and also a Roth IRA. So you're getting not only the immediate benefit, you're getting the future benefit also. So, and remember, in all of these vehicles that we're discussing, you get to choose what your investment is in those vehicles. You could invest into stocks, which again would be like Apple, Microsoft. You could invest into bonds, which are things that pay you interest. You could leave it in cash. We wouldn't advise that, but you can. There are even ways to invest into real estate within each of these vehicles. So, but I think really understanding the tax code and understanding the best way to accumulate assets for the future is really, from our vantage point, is how people that are in retirement, and we find that they're actually ahead of other ones that have only focused on one investment vehicle, which is typically just their 401k. So being independent contractors, you guys know the burden of retirement falls on you. You will have, some Social Security potentially in the future, but really most of your retirement savings has to actually be accumulated by yourself. Now, with that, you may have young kids, and there are ways to actually now save for college or even high school, and the best way we have found actually to do this is through what we call a 529 plan. So there are other ways to actually invest, but the 529 plan is a fantastic vehicle. My son is 19 years of age. I started investing into the 529 plan, which is an after-tax contribution. The money grows tax deferred and comes out tax-free for college. If again, we actually use it for college tuition, and his college is going to be about $70,000 a year. So it's a very nice vehicle to actually save when you're early, get that accumulation, or what I was talking about, compound interest, and pull out that money tax-free. So again, a great vehicle if you start early. And the key to all of this, again, is trying to start early. And if you've started a little later, you need to increase those amounts that you're contributing to each of these plans or investment vehicles. So with that, I think we can probably open it up to any questions that anyone has. I know we've covered a fair amount of material, but again, I think it's always good to understand not only the tax system, but the options you have when it comes to saving based on your goals.
Thanks, everyone. If you're ready, I'll start throwing some of the questions towards you guys.
Great.
So I used to be a 1099 in my earlier 20s, and I definitely didn't think about retirement. I'm still trying to figure out my personal path on it. For someone that hasn't really thought much about retirement, doesn't know where to go, you're kind of throwing them in the deep end. What are some good first steps if I'm just now starting to think about retirement? How can I go forward?
Really, that's a great question. I think it comes down to, number one is, how quickly will you need the money if there's an emergency or an opportunity. So if you're saying this is truly retirement, the Roth IRA is a great vehicle if you don't need the actual deduction today. So it's such a powerful vehicle for the future because of that tax-free withdrawal. So you could set up an account like a firm like ourselves. We would open up a Roth IRA. We would invest it, for you, and then you'd get that compound interest. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more immediate, where you may use it for a house purchase or something that, within the next 5 years, you can still open up an investment account. Companies like we work through a company called Fidelity or companies like Schwab, and you can still buy stocks and bonds and different investments for yourself. So there's some good ways to get going as you're younger. As your income goes up and now you're looking for some tax, deductions, the plans we mentioned are probably some of the best plans. The SEP IRA, the individual 401k plan, and even the IRA if you're needing the deduction.
Thanks. We had a question from the audience, from one of our audience members, James. What is the best way to start a 401k as a truck driver? And can you kind of go into some of the fees? I know oftentimes you got to look at the assets. So maybe they probably own their own truck, I'm imagining. A lot of our guys do, or they're close to paying it off. So kind of if there's any asset backing that they might have to consider as well.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the individual 401k plan was designed for independent contractors. So there's not a lot of actual cost to set one up. So if you think about, working for a large company, there's going to be potentially cost because you have employees. But the individual 401k plan just requires someone like ourselves. We set it up through a custodian like Fidelity or Schwab or whoever you're using. And you don't really have to do any real record keeping until you hit 250,000 in assets. And then you'll actually have to use what's called a third-party administrator to actually then administer your plan. And that's typically about $500 to $600 a year once you get over 250,000 in assets. So really just setting it up, the investments may have some cost to them, but that's based upon what you're trying to accomplish. But setting the plan up itself and getting contributions in there, there's no real cost to it. It's just if you get over $250,000, you need a record keeper involved. We lost your mic there.
Sorry about that, guys.
No
That was 250,000 in assets added to the account, not 250,000 assets in total, right?
That's right. So if the 401k plan has over 250,000 in assets, then you have to get a record keeper.
Thanks.
Yep.
One of the other questions that we have is about beneficiaries. There's a lot of talk about beneficiaries regarding these plans. Do I have to have one? What does that really mean? And do I just put my girlfriend or my wife or my kids? Can you kind of walk some of our guys through that process?
Yeah, that's an excellent question because IRA accounts or qualified accounts, as they're called, they supersede any will or trust you may have. So if you put down your girlfriend and all of a sudden now you're no longer, in a relationship, and you forgot to change it, it's going to go to your girlfriend. Okay, so you got to make sure you update your beneficiaries. So what some people typically do is they're going to maybe put a trust down if they've created one, right? So a trust would be, so think of it when it comes to your estate plan or your death plan, let's call it. You're going to have a living will, which would be, okay, I want my money to go to so-and-so. The trust is where now you own maybe a home. Maybe you have kids that you really want to make sure that they don't get your money until they're a certain age, right? So imagine giving money to an 18-year-old, a couple $100,000 might not be a good decision. So sometimes someone will just put a trust there because then that trust will have a trustee who then will help, distribute the assets to whoever the beneficiary is. But just on its surface, the question is, I would always say, in the state of California, you have to make your spouse as the beneficiary. She has to sign off if she's not the beneficiary. And then if you have minor kids, it's better to have a trust to actually be the secondary beneficiary because you don't really want them to be named as a beneficiary if they're minors. If they're not minors, then you can name them individually.
Got it. It sounds like there might be a couple steps for folks that, as your family grows, you have to kind of consider some of these alternatives.
We do. Yep.
I know we kind of went over our allotted time, but we did have one more question, and then maybe you guys can let us know how best to get a hold of you. You mentioned the SEP IRA or IRA and the individual 401k. Is there a preferred plan for our owner operator population? Is there one better suited to them, or it's something that they need to think about?
Yeah, I mean, from the way we look at it, and just from an example standpoint, if someone had $100,000 of income, the SEP IRA is really only going to allow you to put in $20,000. But on that same $100,000, you get the $19,500 401k contribution. If you're over the age of 50, you get the $6,500 actual contribution. And then you get the $20,000 matching contribution. That's an option to make a $46,000 contribution on $100,000 of income. You know, it's completely changeable. It's not set in stone. So I don't know any reason why you wouldn't do the individual 401k plan unless you have employees. So if you hire an employee, you cannot have the individual 401k plan. That's why it's called a solo or individual 401k plan. So I think that's probably where some people gravitate to the SEP, or maybe they just aren't aware of actually how this individual 401k or solo K, as they're called, how they work.
Got it. We did have another question come in. I hope I can keep you a little bit longer. Yes. So when it comes to a Roth IRA or IRA, if I'm married, I have to make less than 100 or 190K. What if I end up making a little bit more a couple of years down the road? What happens to my Roth IRA?
Great question. So the year you actually contribute, that money's good. It qualifies. So if you make under $198,000 and you made that contribution, that money's good. It's just future contributions can't be made if you're over the $198,000.
So they'll need to find another plan, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and just remember that the 198 is your actual adjusted gross income. So you could still contribute to a 401k and reduce that income, right? So you can still qualify even if you make over 198 based upon the deductions you have for other retirement plans. So there are ways we can get people, if they're over 198, to still qualify. But if you're up in the $300,000, $400,000 income, you're not going to qualify for a Roth IRA. Now, inside the individual 401k plan, it's pretty cool because you don't actually have those income limitations. You can decide to do a Roth 401k contribution or that pre-tax 401k contribution. You get to decide. So you can still actually get some Roth benefit inside the individual 401k plan.
Got it. Thanks. And our question asker appreciated the explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
So we kind of went a little bit too far over. Sorry, guys. I think I'll turn it back over to Carla and to you guys, and I'll hop off the camera. But Great. If any more question askers, if you think of a question later, just message Carla or myself, or go ahead and message the Harbor Trucking webpage, and we'll take care of you and we'll pass you along.
Thank you, Eric. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jason and Andrew. Where can owner-operators contact you?
Yeah, so you can actually reach me, and I don't know if you can put that across the bottom here at Andrew Barrier. So there's my cell phone. Still have the Oregon number, 503-803-2978. Or you can reach us at the firm at 714-536-4065. You can just ask for Andrew. Or you can just reach me via email at andrew@weaverconsultinggroup.com.
Excellent. And for those of you that are Trucker Advantage program members, you can access to Weaver Consulting Group via the platform very soon. If you aren't a member yet, you can become a member today for free. You can get annual membership for a whole year. Just go to www.harbortrucker.com, create an account, and we'll be able to help you. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope everybody has a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.